Welcome back, everybody. Just before the previous clip or the previous video, you seen me build the curves, or rather the cheeks, for project number 13 with our change elbow, meaning the 10-inch and the 10-inch entering and 8-inch leaving sides there. For this video, we are going to actually build the heel, rather the throat and the heel back, rather the front and the back, or however you want to look at that, for this project. So let's get into it. So on this set of plans, if I separate them here, I've got my throat, as well as on the next page I've got the heel, and it says we've got a straight section and we got a rolled section, and then we got a rolled throat as well. They're all exactly the same width, so we got an 8-inch duct is what our final goal is going to be. We're going to make that 8 inches here and 8 inches on the throat, so they'll be identical. So let's just set them aside, the plans for right now, and let's get our rolled dimensions. Now your rolled dimensions can be calculated per basically the formula that was used on page 60, with a little bit of additional work that goes in with that. So let's just flip back here a minute. I'll take this section out as well, and let me go back to the, sorry about that, let me go back to the cheek dimensions. So we got all of our plans laid out in front of us. So the formula on page 60, what it states is you take your radius dimension times half of pi, and then plug and chug the numbers and add any additional straight sections. So this one's a little bit confusing because we got a radius dimension on this side of 12 and a radius dimension on this side of 14. So which one do you use? Well, on this one we're going to be using the 12-inch dimension, because that's where we based our radius of our heel off of. On this inner throat, we're going to use the 4-inch dimension, because that's where that one was based off, plus, and then we'll add an additional half-inch and half-inch for them sections. So let's figure them dimensions, and then I'll try to prove that by using the string method or a wire method, whatever you want to look at there. Okay, so we're going to take half of pi, so pi 3.14 divided by 2 gives you 1.57 something repeating or whatever into that number. Now I'm going to multiply it by my 12-inch dimension, where we based, trying to figure this arc on, where we based that arc on our dotted line, so times 12, and that comes up to 18.84 inches. Now I've already measured it when we built it here, that straight section is 2.5 inches, so I'm going to add that additional 2.5 for that side, plus 2.5, and now I'm up to 21.349, and then I can't forget, because I based my arc a half-inch up, I've got to add this additional half-inch onto that, so plus another 0.5, and I come up with a dimension there of 21.849. Now 21.75 is 3/4, so we're right in that area. Okay, so you can convert it to a fraction decimal, but it doesn't come out just right on that. So 21.849 is your dimension. Just about 21 7/8 with that. Okay, that'll be the dimension for our heel, from this point all the way up and around to the back. So let's see if we can come up with that. I'll just set that there, and then I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to run this out. Now I have found in the past that it matters if you go on the inside or the outside. Not a whole lot, but it does make a difference. So the sheet's actually going to be set on the outside, so I'm going to measure based on the outside of the easy edgers 90 degree. And we'll walk that cable around there, or string, or whatever you got, and we'll try to prove that 21.849 is the exact dimension that we're looking for on this part. So I'm going to take it right to the edge of the sheet there, and it's on this wire, it goes right to the O portion. And then I'll take it over to my ruler here, and if I did this right, 21.849 right there on the mark, just about 21 7/8. So that is going to work out for that that rolled heel dimension. That's probably the most challenging one of the part there. Now we got to calculate our dimension for the inside. So I've already written that down, 21.849, and I've got it stored in the calculator there. Now we got to figure out this dimension of the throat. So again, we're going to put it in our calculator here. We're going to go pi divided by 2 equals 1.57 times our radius dimension. If you recall from the previous project, our pivot point was a 1/2 inch in and a 1/2 inch up. So from there to the inner throat bend is 4 inches. So let's multiply that out times 4, and we got 6.28. Then we've got to add our additional straight sections on. So we got a 1/2 inch here and a 1/2 inch here, so plus an inch. And we come up with 7.283. Now 7.25 is 7 1/4 inches, so that should work out pretty well for that dimension. And I've already done that, but I'll do it again so you can see it. So again, it'll be different if you go to the inside, so we want to be on the outside where the part's going to be set. Line it up, and then bring that around, find the length of the wire. So that came right out on the lettering of the R. Take it over here, and it should come up pretty close to 7 and about 1/4, 7 inches. So we're about 7 1/8 based on the wire there. So the formulas do work out pretty well. Maybe the discrepancy was in how I cut it. Maybe it wasn't a perfect circle when I cut that, or a perfect piece of the pie out of there, and that can make them things longer or a little bit shorter. Okay, so we're going to go with those dimensions, 7 1/4, and my outside dimension of 21 7/8 with that. Okay, so let's set these aside for a minute. Now that I got those marks and those numbers down, you can write them on your plans or however you want to do that. And if you look at it, it wants it to be, when we're complete, it wants to have an 8-inch fitting, and then I've got 7/8 and 7/8 for our lock form machine on the top and bottom, and the throat identical to that, an 8-inch internal section or 8-inch finished duct when we're done, and a 7/8 and a 7/8 for our lock form machine. Again, unfortunately, just like the previous projects, the 7 1/4 is under our 8-inch minimum that we want to run through the lock former, so we're going to fabricate both of these pieces on one chunk of metal. So, okay, so let's figure out our width. I've got 8 7/8 and 7/8, which comes up to 9 3/4, and I've already cut that piece. There's your 9 3/4, and then whatever a 36-inch sheet came out to, and I've actually cut that off as well already. So then I figured my roll dimension for the outer heel. I'm sorry if you can't see that. Let me pull that up there again. So I got my roll dimension with the straight section for the outer, for the back or the heel of the fitting, plus the rolled dimension for the throat. Rather, it'll be backwards, so the lines will be in on that when we get that complete. So we calculated that dimension. I believe it was, again, what did we say? 21 7/8 is what I got on here. So I've already marked that. Pulled that out, 21 7/8, put a mark on that sheet, then took my square, set it on that edge, and I scribed a straight line for that dimension. The next thing I did was I took my scribe here, and I marked my 7/8 dimension, which on most lock formers, again, that's going to be a 1-inch dimension. So mark them all the way across both pieces, my heel and my throat, and we'll flip it over and do the same one more time with that. Try to keep things set here so you can visualize it based on the plans. The 1/2-inch marks are really nothing for us at this point. They're just telling us where the bar folder is going to go on later to either put a drive cleat on, or a slip and drive, or even an S-clip, that kind of take up in them areas there. So at this point in time, we're ready to notch this piece out. So we're going to notch the ends, and then this is tied together, so that'll be different fabrication process between the middles, but I can notch the other end of the section. So let's start with that. So there's the first notch, and I'll hang on to that chunk so I can use that to give you the demonstration of the centers in just a second here. There's the other side, and we'll finish it up with this here. Oh, drop that one. Okay. At this point in time, I'm going to make I'm going to cut it here after I run it through the lock former. I'm going to take care of where the notches would be with that. So, got my little templates there. There are the cutouts from the previous project, and we're just going to mark those, both sides, and then just like I would in just a second here, we'll cut them off accordingly. Let me mark the other side, and then we'll get to fabricating this up. So set the points, set the outer points right on your 7/8 mark. Hold them down. Takes a little bit of setting up here. Give yourself a mark. And down to the end. Okay, at this point in time, these marks here that I just laid in there and marked out of there are the same as cutting back this here. So if I take that and I cut that out with my tin snips, that's the same as that. And then we're just going to finish the peaks, the remaining peak of each section there on around. And there you got the relief for the lock form. I'll finish this side. Watching them edges. Flip it around. Here's that center relief for the lock form. And I noticed I got a tail on that one, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to cut that out of there. We don't like those. Helps to have a really good sharp snips when cutting them small ones out like that. And the last bit here. Okay, at this point in time I've got, let's flip it back around, I've got my heel, same setup as on the plan, and I've got my throat. The only thing else that you could really mark is where the roll is going to stop, which is 2.5 inches back. Some people eyeball it, but you can mark it if you like. So let's do that next. 2.5 inches back. I'll use the red numbers on the tape measure at the foot mark for accuracy there. And we'll say that's going to be our rolled mark, where that's going to stop. Just make certain down the line that we don't cut on this mark. We have to cut on this mark up here. Okay, let's go on over and run this through the lock form. Okay, here we are at the lock form machine then. We are going to take care of it and run it through. Lines up, identical on both sides there. Got everything notched out and it's ready to go. So turn it on. We'll keep it tight up against the fence so it doesn't catch and pull away. Spin it around and do it one more time. At this point in time, we're ready to cut the throat loose from the heel. So let's spin over to this machine here. Our squaring shear. We'll line it up. Hopefully I've got that set where you can see that. The marks down right in between along the cutting edge there. Now we got the throat and the heel. Okay, the next part of the project is to roll the heel and roll the throat to match the cheeks. So we got to determine which direction we have to roll it so they sit on there properly. So we have to roll it lines up, and then I've got my straight 2.5 inch section there, which is supposed to not need a roll from the end. So we're going to determine which direction it has to be, and it's got to be lines up this way. The next thing we're going to do is install our metal sleeves to keep that metal from closing down when we roll it through the rollers. It'll help keep those grooves open for you, and install that on the lock former a little easier, or install that lock formed edge easier. Do the same on the other side. We'll open the lock on the roller, push down the lifting rod, set it, and lock that in. And we're up to cranking it through. See how that looks. Actually that came out pretty close on the first try. It's just overbent slightly, so I'll open that back up and we'll be good to go. Let's finish up our throat then. First things first, let's determine the direction of bend that it has to be there. Now this one has to be ran through lines down. So we'll flip it over, open the lock. Now this one gets rolled all the way to the end because there is no straight section on the inner throat. And it appears this one needs to be tightened up, so again, with your adjustments on the back, we'll turn the left side as well as the right side in equal number of turns, and then just continue to run that through there. And we'll continue that procedure until we get to the 90 degree. We're getting close. Let's check it out. And I think that's going to work just fine. Okay, in front of me I have a completed heel and throat rolled to match the left and the right cheek, the left and the right, where they will connect through with this straight section where it's straight because there's no bend there, and then just a little bit. On the next video we'll be ready for assembly. So thanks for watching.